Hi everyone, Ivana Taylor. You know me as your friendly blog writer from Question Pro, and I'm sitting here with Vivek Bhaskaran, your CEO, who is going to share with us why he is so excited about Second Prism. So tell us, what is Second Prism and why are you so doggone excited about it?
Hi, Ivana. How are you doing?
Doing awesome.
All right. So let me talk about Second Prism. About 8 months ago, we were sitting around drinking beers and trying to figure out what to do next with our lives, I guess. And one of the things that we noticed in the marketplace, as well as within the customer community, that was really uh, uh, you know barking out to us is better data visualizations. That's what we were getting the feedback from our customers, and we also noticed in the marketplace, infographics were hot and everywhere. All right, so if you put the two and two together and say, and you step back and you start looking at why are infographics so popular, right? Because they tell a story, they tell it beautifully, and effectively they present data in a way that users can very easily digest. All right, and then we started looking at ourselves, like, who are we? We're a question pro, we're survey analytics. We produce data for our clients, and we have to come up with a model that is somewhat futuristic, somewhat better than what it is currently today, in terms of digestible data, in terms of taking data and converting that into insights, really, because that's kind of the crux of the problem right now. So we put the two together and we said, how are we going to solve this problem? And so we decided to come up with yet another business, obviously, and we call that Second Prism frankly, for lack of a better term, better name. Um, we kind of looked through a bunch of ideas about naming, and we had a bunch of domain names that we had already registered earlier on for other ideas, but this seemed to match in terms of Prism looking through the data, and Second Prism is looking at it in a different way, really. So Second Prism, in a nutshell, frankly, is a reporting and a data visualization engine that can absorb data on one side and spit out theoretically insights, the equivalent of insights on the other side, in the form of charts and graphs that are highly interactive, that you can actually work with and manipulate and actually play around with, if you will, to get some insight out of the data that's going into the system. So it's not really a nutshell, but that's our kind of the background and history of how Second Prism got started.
So you said to me a little bit earlier that this was big. What is it that you see that everybody else is missing?
Um, what I see in terms of data visualization is, especially the way we've structured Second Prism, is not just not just pretty charts. Really, I think our vision with Second Prism really is moving the data from all the way from the back end, which is in some database, all the way to the boardroom. Right. So decisions are made. Let's say the decisions are made on the board in the boardroom.
Right.
Um, and more, obviously, we all want to make decisions based on, numerics, analytics, evidence, really. And I've sat on many meetings where, we'll ask a question around like, hey, our, unique visitors count went up by 24% this month. All right. And typically I'll ask a question, okay, how much did it go up by the same thing last year? And the data presenter won't have the easy answer to it. Like, okay, I'll get back to you on it. All right, because he doesn't have that as one of the data points. He's not doesn't have that as a slide deck, really. What we want to do is to change that to say, like, look, when questions arise, in the boardroom, in the decision-making authority, you don't want to spend 2 days trying to go get the data back, come back to the decision maker, because by that time the conversation is probably shifted somewhere else, really. So, what Second Prism really, the vision behind that is to, really compress the time between, asking questions about data and producing answers, really. And doing so in a highly interactive way, because data exploration is not, I can ask one question, that'll lead to an answer, that'll lead to another question, that'll lead to an answer, and so on and so forth. So So that's the power behind, not just Second Prism, but basically any system that can kind of take data that is inside, two or three or four different database systems typically, and present that in a way that present that, almost into the boardroom. So that's why I think this is, obviously that's why I think Second Prism is big, and that's why I think, it's going to go, frankly, a long way.
So how do you see people? So I think what I hear you saying is people are going to have this Second Prison app on their mobile devices. They'll be able to answer questions. You talked briefly about where the data comes from. Can you talk a little bit more about how we as users would interact with Second Prism? Like, where do we get the data? Is it data on demand? How do we pay for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think our vision right now is, you imagine Second Prism as a funnel point for different data sources, really, right? So you have survey data coming in from different places. You have transactional data, like your purchase data coming in from your own internal systems, and then you have behavioral data, really, coming in from things like Omniture and Google Analytics, or how people are clicking on your website. And the idea behind Second Prism really is to converge all these three data sets or more into a singular experience at a minimum, and then really use probably time as the combining element, or different elements, different attributes that can combine the data together and visualize the data. So the way I see users initially, and I can see this as a multi-phased approach coming out, really. Initially, Second Prism is going to be a data visualization tool for a bunch of services, really, right? Like Question Pro, IdeaScale, Survey Analytics, Metavana. All these systems have data that come out of the system, out of their systems, and it's going to be a tablet, smartphone, mobile visualization tool. So anywhere you are, you want to look at some data, you can pop up your iPad, or you can pop up your iPhone and then search for some data set, as well as play around with it, look through it, and try to understand what's going on with the data set. So you mentioned a little bit about the playing around with it. So we've done some fairly decent innovations in terms of how you play around with it, really. The touch interface, and typically, you get a PowerPoint deck or a PDF document with a bunch of charts and graphs of some data that's produced, and it's really up to the guy who's producing the data to kind of imagine what you would want, right? To say, like, look, I'm gonna present this data to the board, and I think they need this. This is how they would like to see the data. I think that's presumptuous, really, because when I get data, I want to look into it, really. I don't want the analysts who produce the data to me kind of make some assumptions of how I would want to see it, really. Yes, they can make some baseline assumptions about how I want to view the data, but not. I want to have the option myself, even as a CEO of a company, to actually do some drill downs, and do some comparisons myself, really. So this is what Second Prism is very, very unique and different than just giving out a static snapshot of the data. It actually gives out a kind of an interactive model for the data, really. So I can then say, look, I know here's a chart that shows how many users have signed up with Question Pro over the last year, and I'm specifically interested in this particular spike. What happened there, and then I want to also know all the webinars we're doing for the last year, and then I can maybe correlate the two of them together. And I also want to see how many users have signed up this month over last month, and I also sometimes want to see how much users have signed up this year over last year. So a whole bunch of things that I want to take a look at that I can, even as a CEO of the company, I want to dive into the data set to actually understand certain pieces, some certain insights. Typically, if I get a PowerPoint doc, I don't get to do any of that stuff, really. I just, it is what the analyst decided the best way to view the data was, and that's it. And while I perfectly love it, because I don't want to do this deep dive or dive anytime, but there are times when I myself have wanted to do it, and then at that point I don't have any options, really. So Second Prism, in our vision, really, is to kind of eliminate that process, to say, hey, this is the default view of the data. The analyst can decide this is how the data should look like, but if the consumer of that of the data wants to look at things to the left or to the right of it, wants to combine options and decombine options, and wants to kind of hide options and not hide options, and then I want to be able to do that, and I want to be able to do that fairly easily without complex kind of manipulation, without writing any code and all that stuff, and drag and drop and touch, and that's it. So so if you see the touch interface. I just call it the touch interface, the iPad, the tablets, as well as the smartphones, give us a fairly intuitive way of just playing with objects. Really, I know my 2.5-year-old kind of plays around with it, all day long. She can figure it out. Most other people can figure it out easily with the touch interface, because the interface itself, frankly, that's one of the innovations that has happened in the last 2 years, 3 years, really, is the touch interface itself has lends itself to a lot of interactivity. So when you have this much of interactivity, when you have the surface area, we need to be able to tell, the decision makers, like, you can play around with the data. And Second Prism is kind of our kind of vision around how you can take a data set and frankly play around with it, manipulate it, and get, frankly, at the end of the day, get more insights out of it, rather than just what is just given to you. So
awesome.
That's where I see Second Prism really, really helping out.
So one last question. How would you recommend that, kind of give us a starting point? So we download Second Prism. Do you have any recommendations for what we should do to just really start experiencing it for ourselves?
So, I think, like I said, in steps. The first phase is to get a Second Prism fairly tightly integrated with Question Pro, Survey Analytics, and IdeaScale. So if you have an IdeaScale account or a Question Pro or Survey Analytics account, you can download Second Prism, link your account to your survey accounts as well as your community accounts on IdeaScale, and get the same data that you would normally get through Question Pro and Survey Analytics, but also get it through Second Prism. And in that case, and then play around with your own data, really. So that's kind of phase one of where we are. Phase two would be, we have this notion of public data sets as well as premium data sets, where other people have uploaded data sets, where you're looking at data when you can search for data for something that you do not have your own data, and you can search for that data and you can play around with that data set, really, to say, okay, here's what this means, and data coming in from external, from other users, really. And the third piece would be, our vision around these combining sets from the data sets from different disparate providers, right? So we'll integrate Google Analytics and find a way to kind of match Google Analytics data with your survey data, with your transactional data, really. That's kind of probably a phase 3 approach to where we're headed. So, from a practical standpoint, what you can do today is download Second Prism, connect your Second Prism account to your Question Pro or Survey Analytics or IdeaScale account, or even if you have your own data set, if you have an SPSS data file or a CSV or an Excel data file, you can upload that CSV or Excel data file. So that's another quick way of looking at data. For example, you get a big ass Excel file, you say, like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, I need to take a look at what this really means. Yes, you can use, obviously, charts in Excel, but you can also give the same shot, within Second Prism. Or if you have an SPSS data file, you get an you run some survey, or you get some data from somewhere else, with an SPSS data file. You can upload the SPSS data file, and then it automatically generates a whole bunch of charts and graphs for you. So those are the practical things you can do today. I think the SPSS and Excel are probably the easiest way to start kind of experiencing Second Prism and just kind of looking at what it can and cannot do, really.
Sounds like a creative way to astound and amaze the boardroom. Love it. All right, so everybody download your app and start playing with it, and leave us comments in the section. Let us know how you're doing. Thanks a lot, Viv.
Yeah, bye.